Hello, this is Marion Penna coming to you from Seems to Be So. Today I'm going to talk to you about Sure Cuts Alot. It's a software that people use for creating their cutting files for their cutting machines. In the past I have not liked Sure Cuts Alot because it just does some things not in a way I prefer, but it has added some great new features to this new version, which is version 5, and I'd like to show those to you today. I don't know that I'm going to be switching to the software because it still does layers in a way that I just don't like. So for me, I would use it just to get the features I wanted that are helpful for making my SVG files, but otherwise I think I would still work and make the cut. But I wanted to show these to you because they will be really helpful. Sure Cuts Alot is located at craftedge.com, and it traditionally sells for about $60 if you haven't purchased it before. It's known as SCAL to most people, SCAL. That's just the abbreviations or the initials for Sure Cuts Alot. The upgrade cost is $24.99, and that is extremely reasonable for software that is constantly upgraded. The creator of the software listens to his users and adds features that they want and need in the software. One of them is the new ability to do what is called nesting. It shows you a features list of what's new in the software. You can see that on the products page for version 5. And this covers both the standard version, which is the one I own, and the pro version, which is a lot more expensive, but is for, I gather, more professional users or people who want a few extra features that they can use. There are features in the Pro program that I would absolutely love to have, but I can't justify the cost of the software to purchase it. However, in the standard version, they have added the ability to create cut files for your machine embroidery formats, which is a nice feature when you consider that there are not many embroidery programs that will do this for you. They're starting to come out, but they're still not there in that respect. The only ones I know of, in fact, that actually make SVG cutting files are Embrilliance, Embird, and So What Pro. And all of these are softwares, except for So What Pro. I think it costs about $60 to $70. The Embird and Embrilliance both cost over $100 each to purchase them. I have used Embrilliance in the past and I love it for making cutting files, but I don't do it very often because I like to make my SVG files from my PDF file, and I'm used to doing that, so I don't foresee making that change anytime soon. Sure Cuts Alot has had the ability to create SVG files from PDFs since version 4, so it's not like you didn't have it in the previous version, because you did. But this feature today is called nesting. And nesting was something that was added to Silhouette Designer Pro during version 3 before version 4 came out, and it really I was very upset that I couldn't use the nesting feature because you can't export to SVG from Silhouette. You have to make a studio file. The only way you can export an SVG from Silhouette is to purchase the business edition. And I just can't justify that cost for something I wouldn't do very often in the first place. So I was very excited that Sure Cuts Alot Pro added a nesting feature. And there are a lot of really additional nice features too that they added. But to me, the nesting feature alone is worth the $25 upgrade for what you get in the software. The machine embroidery format is nice, but I'll probably still make mine from a PDF file, so I doubt very much I would use it very often, unless I use a purchase design that I'd bought that I wanted to convert to SVG. That's the only time I can see using the feature for machine embroidery formats. But if you buy a lot of designs, download a lot of free designs, you might find this feature very nice to have, and especially if you already own the software, because it is just a $25 upgrade. Whereas in Silhouette, if you own Silhouette, you would get that as part of your updates, because Silhouette doesn't charge for updates. So even version 3 to version 4 had no upgrade cost. But it's just levels of the software for Silhouette. With Silhouette, when they came out with the machine embroidery format, you had to pay an upgrade price for the newest level. So that's the difference. They charged you for that, which was fine, I guess. Back then I was still using my Cameo, so I paid the price, but I no longer use my Cameo, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference to me. Either way, I'm going to show you the nesting feature because I do love it, and it's going to come in really handy for those of you, especially who use my patterns and use the freezer paper cutting method. You will really appreciate being able to do this. So let's get on with what it is. Nesting is taking your shapes from what appear on your mat and conglomerating them into the smallest amount of space so that you are not wasting any fabric or freezer paper. And for those of you who pay an additionally high price for freezer paper, you know what I mean. You're trying to use as little as possible because you're paying a higher premium for that freezer paper. I have friends in Australia and Europe who pay a lot more money for freezer paper than we do here in the USA. And I hear constantly about how expensive it is. So this is a great feature for those of you who really want to save on that space. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to open just any old SVG file that I have here. It doesn't matter if it's the reversed file or the not reversed file. This is a machine embroidery file, as a matter of fact, but it's the same for any of my patterns. As you can see, this looks like, you know, any one of my patterns. This one just happens to be separated already by the fabrics used in the design. Over here is the layers of each individual shape, and they are labeled as to what the key number is for that shape. In my machine embroidery formats, they all go by numbers. But if you've ever had one of my EQ patterns, you know they go by letters, A, B, C, or A1, B1, B2, B, C3, that kind of thing. Well, A1, B1, C1 is what I've done. Sorry about that. Okay, so getting back to this, what happens here is, even though this is all separated by the fabric, we're not making a fabric cut. We're making a freezer paper cut, and that's what you want to do if you're making a freezer paper cut. Or even, I'll show you how to do a fabric cut with the nesting feature also. But for right now, I'm just going to show you this really quick. You don't have to have anything selected, actually. You just put your SVG, or even if you're converting from PDF, you can open your PDF and bring the page into the software. It automatically converts it to cut lines when it comes in to the software. And you then go to the effects menu. You come down here to the nest line in the menu. There's nothing you have to do here for the most part, except you want to choose the ungroup line. Okay, you can leave it be. I'll show you what happens. I like to see the preview of what's happening first. And all it really did was just move this all up here. It didn't really do anything from what I can tell. So I'm going to choose ungroup, even though I know this SVG file is already ungrouped. It seems to need that line to be checked. So there must be something in the SVG file that's saying it's grouped somewhere. So once I do that, you'll see what happens. Look how cool that is. It put everything into the smallest amount of space. When I click OK, you can see it here. It's put everything in the smallest amount of space. And for freezer paper templates, that's perfect because you want to use the absolute minimum amount of space that you possibly can. Now, if you wanted to, you can change some shapes. You could move this up here, for instance, and just use the rotator to move it around so that it will fit inside here. And there you've used that space, and you have a little bit of extra space here that even though it will cut around it and you'll have all that space, you'll still have saved a little bit of space. If you play with the settings, you could get these to probably go a little bit closer, but I would feel more comfortable if I at least knew I had some space, because you know how sometimes freezer paper can curl up on your mat if it's not laying down flat in a sticky spot. You don't want it to curl up on you, so you at least want to have some part in there so it doesn't tear on you. But for the most part, when you're cutting freezer paper, you don't need a really sticky mat. You just need to have your freezer paper at least stuck enough to the mat so that it will still lift up easily, but still stick to the mat. So that's the first feature of the nesting ability I wanted to show you. And like I said, you could play with the settings to try and get them closer if you wanted. I'm just going to put this all back. And I'm going to show you how you can do this if you're cutting fabric. Now let's say that I didn't have this already separated by the fabric. See, this is why to me this is grouped, because and I can come here and ungroup, and that's something to think about. I have ungrouped it, and I do need it to be ungrouped because I'm only going to be selecting the stars for this next section. So you want to select the area that you need. This is for fabric cut, and I'm going to show you what happens here. I'm going to go to Effects, Nest, and by choosing Selection, I'm going to check my preview and have a look and see how it moves this up here into the very slimmest of space that you need. There you go. You are already, that is already, and you're going to use the least amount of space possible. And you could inch this over also with your arrows on your keyboard. Now when I make cuts, I do not like mine right on the edge because I can never guarantee I'm going to get that freezer paper right at the very edge of mine. And I actually try not to get it at the edge, if you want me to be honest, because I like to put a little bit of painter's tape on my freezer paper and my mat so that I know that that freezer paper is going to stay in place no matter what. So I do that just as a precaution because I'm too used to the cameo mats, I think. But in this reflection, I would still go about making sure that it's not right on the edge, and I just use my arrow keys to move these down. So that's how you take and do selections so that you can keep your fabric separate. When you're done, move these down and out of the way, put them in a spot where it'll be easiest for you, and then do your next set of fabrics. So that you don't want to put them all together because you have all of them conglomerated, and that doesn't work if you have 4 or 5 different fabrics on your mat. So you do need to have some separation there. This is good enough, and I wouldn't worry so much about nesting this piece. But like With these here, which also use the same, I would definitely nest this. So here is this nested. I want the selection only. Be sure that you have selected on your mat and then choose the selection only on your window. And then you can click the update to see how you feel about this. And if this is good enough for you, go ahead and click OK. By playing with these features, the spacing is the one where you can probably really butt them up next to each other if you wanted to play with that a little bit. I haven't really played a lot yet with the settings because I've been perfectly happy with everything I've gotten so far. But if you look at this, look how great this is. These are right up next to each other, butted up as close as possible. When I select it again, I can move this down like how I like it. And then I can move this out of the way so that I can place my fabric over here. And I've wasted less space with this little amount than I would have had almost with this one, because I would have been down to here and over in here with my fabric. But now I only have to do a 4 by, say, 3-inch piece of fabric. So that's a much better way of doing your nesting and getting those pieces to conglomerate all together than if you were to try and do it the other way. And if you have a brother scan and cut, the great thing about Sure Cuts Alot is that you simply go to File, Export, and you can choose FCM from the menu. It now says Scan and Cut FCM. Jennifer Blossy on YouTube has a great video she's posted today about how to set up the scan and cut, what it likes for the scan and cut. She has her software already set for the scan and cut. And because I use 2 different softwares, I would have to change mine each time. But I'd go ahead and make the FCM file in Sure Cuts Alot and then open it just in Canvas as a precaution to make sure that everything is the way it should be, and then resave it as an FCM to put on my USB stick. I still use a cutter that uses the USB. It doesn't have wireless, so I can't send mine straight to the machine like some people can. But if I change this to scan and cut, it's going to let me type in the name, and there I would go. And then I would save it, and I'd be ready. So there you go for this great little lesson on nesting. I don't do too many tutorials on cutting because with cutting for quilting, you don't really need to know or do all this other great stuff that the softwares feature. So, but I wanted to show you nesting because it's such a great feature. And if you have a cutting machine and you're cutting freezer paper shapes or fabric shapes, you're going to love the nesting feature. So I wanted to be sure I showed that to you. And I hope you have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.